The tribunal chamber buzzed with anticipation. Beings of all shapes and sizes, scaled, feathered, armored, lined the amphitheater in quiet murmurs. Every eye was drawn to the raised central platform, where a single human stood alone. Sarah Miles looked out of place. Barely over 5 feet tall, slim-built, face unreadable beneath the sharp lines of her short-cut black hair, she wore the standard neutral gray trainee uniform. No insignia. No medals. No sign of rank. Just stillness, coiled like a spring. Commander Jurek Tharn, towering and broad-shouldered, stepped forward. His Kravos frame, nearly 7 feet of sinew and scale, cast a long shadow across the platform. "This is the Council's idea of combat readiness?" he barked, voice gravel grinding on metal. "You send us something that barely qualifies as a life form, and expect it to hold a weapon?" Ripples of laughter echoed among the spectators. Sarah didn't flinch. Captain Mazin, a Zentari strategist with pale translucent skin and a long robe of neural threads, observed silently from the oversight balcony. Unlike the others, he didn't laugh. He squinted. "Recruit Sarah Miles," Jurek continued, pacing in a tight circle around her. "You've volunteered for the cross-species proving trial. Do you understand the terms?" "Yes, Commander." Her voice was steady. "Clear. You will enter the combat zone alone. Live drones. Live fire. No aid. You complete the course, you qualify for command." He leaned in, sneering. "You fail, you leave here in a vapor bag." "I understand." Jurek turned to the crowd, arms raised. "And what weapons has she chosen?" "None. No armor. No enhancements. Just her tiny hands." His claws flexed for emphasis. Sarah slowly turned to face him. "I don't need enhancements," she said softly. "I've already survived worse than this." The laughter died down. Mazin leaned forward. "What did she say?" The trial moderator activated the countdown. A wide screen blinked to life, displaying the desolate asteroid simulation field, a collapsed mining colony reprogrammed into a hellscape for proving grounds. Craters. Ruins. Sensor-triggered sentries. And 20 live drones waiting. Sarah stepped toward the launch gate. The floor vibrated beneath her feet. Jurek leaned in with a final smirk. "This isn't Earth, girl. Out here, size matters." She turned her head slightly. "Not if you aim right." The gate hissed open, and she vanished into the smoke. Inside the simulation zone, Sarah moved like liquid thought, calm, precise, and disturbingly quiet. From the control chamber, high above, Mazin tapped into her vitals. Heart rate steady. Oxygen levels optimal. Brainwaves controlled. Not just calm, trained. Not the kind of calm you fake. The kind you earn in fire. Below, she ducked under a rusted conveyor belt, placed a compact charge, and detonated it milliseconds after a sentry passed overhead. One drone down. No wasted energy. No theatrics. Jurek scowled. "Anyone can get lucky once." Sarah kept moving, slipping through shadows, scaling walls, setting traps. But something about the way she moved, how she predicted enemy routes, how her timing bordered on clairvoyant, felt off. Too efficient. Too fast. "She's not improvising," Mazin murmured. "She's following a protocol." Another drone fell. Then two. All without a single shot fired from her. Just calculated movement and kinetic redirection. Brutal elegance. On screen, Sarah reached a junction point. Her path split. One way led to the control tower, victory. The other, to the enemy cluster, 20-on-1 odds. She turned toward the cluster. Jurek leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "What's she doing?" Sarah's whisper crackled through her collar mic. "Ending the simulation." The control room erupted in blinking alarms. Drones were shutting down mid-combat. Explosive nodes disarmed from the inside. Auto turrets reprogrammed. All in real time. Jurek's mouth dropped. "That's not possible." Mazin turned. "It is, if she has ghost training." Jurek froze. The ghosts were decommissioned after Mars. She's not wearing a ghost insignia. Exactly. Back in the field, Sarah stepped over the last drone, still sparking, and approached the final gate. A cut on her forearm bled down her wrist, soaking into the edge of her rolled sleeve. As the camera zoomed in, something else became visible beneath the blood, an old ink tattoo, black, angular, and unmistakable to anyone who'd ever seen the classified dossiers of Earth's black cell. A mark not worn for pride, but remembrance. Silence blanketed the tribunal chamber. Jurek stared. No. She can't be. Sarah exited the gate. The tribunal chamber remained frozen long after Sarah exited the simulation gate. Commander Jurek Tharn's jaw worked in silence, his eyes fixed on the monitor still glowing with her image. The ink on her arm, simple, geometric, unmistakable, swirled through his mind like a specter. A relic. A warning. Captain Mason broke the silence. That mark, it's not registered in current databases. Jurek snapped. Because it's not supposed to exist anymore. Mason's voice stayed calm. You recognized it. Jurek's fingers curled around the edge of the console. I've seen it once. 12 years ago. During the Kravos border rebellion. He didn't elaborate, and Mason didn't ask. Instead, he turned back to the screen, where Sarah sat alone in the post-trial debriefing chamber, her posture still composed despite blood drying on her forearm. She hadn't spoken since exiting the field. She didn't need to. The debriefing chamber was sterile and quiet. Sarah sat in the metal chair, her wounded arm wrapped hastily in gauze. Across from her, an officer of the tribunal committee flicked through a data pad, visibly sweating. He cleared his throat. Recruit Miles, your simulation metrics. They exceed every known threshold for a solo operative in Class 6 simulations, including species with enhanced reflex pathways. Sarah said nothing. He shifted in his chair. Do you wish to explain the tattoo? Her eyes met his. Not aggressive. Not defensive. But unreadable, like a wall too smooth to climb. I don't believe that's in your clearance range, she replied. The officer blinked. Excuse me? Sarah tilted her head. Check your access level. Line 6. Protocol Delta 93. He hesitated, tapped his pad, and watched the screen flash red. Access denied. Classified black cell override. The officer's breath caught. That's impossible. Earth's black cell was dissolved after the Mars uprising. Sarah looked down at her hand, flexed it slowly, then whispered. Not everyone came home. Outside the chamber, Mason stood beside Jurek, watching through the one-way glass. She was never meant to be a recruit, was she? Mason asked. No, Jurek admitted, voice bitter. She was a message. A warning? Jurek didn't answer immediately. He tapped his claw against the railing, each strike echoing. When I saw that ink on Mars, my team died screaming in the dark. No firefight. No warning. Just silence. She's one of them. Mason looked at him, eyes narrowing. You're afraid of her? Jurek scoffed. I fear nothing. Your silence says otherwise. Jurek turned sharply, towering over the Zentari captain. Don't confuse caution with fear, strategist. I know what ghosts are capable of. We trained for war. They were designed for annihilation. Hours later, in the Council's secured war room, representatives from 12 core worlds convened. Sarah stood before them again, but this time, there was no mockery. No laughter. Only tension. A Zeltari ambassador hissed through his gill slits. Why has Earth placed a ghost in the training program? Earth's holographic envoy appeared beside Sarah. A woman with steel-gray eyes and a uniform without ornament. She is not in the program, the envoy said flatly. She's observing it. Gasps and murmurs erupted. You infiltrated a council program, roared a Narnak delegate. No, the envoy replied. We tested it. Mason raised his hand. With respect, what exactly were you testing? The envoy gave the faintest smile. Bias. Judgment. Tactical awareness under deception. She glanced toward Jurek, who now stood silent in the corner. You failed. Later, in the barracks, Sarah changed out of her simulation uniform, her arm freshly bandaged. She pulled on a simple gray shirt and sat at the edge of her bunk. Quiet. Another recruit approached, Kellic, a short, broad-shelled Crixian who had said little since their first meeting. You're not what you seem, he muttered. Sarah didn't look up. Neither are you. He hesitated. I watched what you did out there. You didn't have to disable them like that. You could have gone for kills. I could have, she agreed. But then they'd stop learning. Kellic blinked. So that was mercy? No, she said. That was control. She turned to face him, and for the first time, he noticed the look in her eyes, not rage, not pride. Precision. A life lived entirely in purpose. He stepped back slowly. Sarah looked down at her hands. They were trembling. Back in the tribunal archive, Mason sat alone, watching the replay again. Frame by frame, he paused at the exact moment she lifted her sleeve. He zoomed in, not on the tattoo itself, but the skin around it. Scars. Dozens. Some surgical. Some not. She was built for something else, he whispered. Then he noticed something else in the lower corner of the screen. A second symbol, faded beneath the primary tattoo. Barely visible. Ancient Terran script. Latin. He translated it aloud. Fiat lux ex tenebris. Let there be light out of darkness. The training dome lights flickered as a new batch of recruits filed into the observation hall. Word had spread, quietly at first, then like a firestorm, that the human girl with the ghost tattoo had broken every combat record in the archives. Some whispered in awe, others in unease. Sarah Miles stood alone again, watching a live drill unfold on the holoscreen. None of the others dared approach her. Until Jurek did. He loomed behind her, his armored boots clanking on the metallic floor. You enjoy the silence you've created? He asked. Sarah didn't turn. Silence is familiar. Jurek folded his arms. You humiliated me in front of the tribunal. No, she said. You did that to yourself. He growled low in his throat. You walk in here, flaunt a myth, and expect us to kneel? Sarah finally turned to face him. I expect nothing. I observe everything. There was no venom in her tone, just calm certainty. That, more than anything, rattled him. Tell me something, he snapped. Is that ink really ghost issue? Or just a story to scare children? Without speaking, Sarah slowly peeled back her sleeve. Not just one mark. 3. Each one etched into her skin with surgical precision. Each one denoting missions classified above council oversight. One symbol Jurek recognized from a campaign long buried, an operation erased after 3 planets vanished. His voice cracked. You were there, on Dalther's moon. She nodded once. I was 17. Elsewhere, Mason sat at his desk, sifting through layers of decrypted records Earth had never meant to share. The second tattoo, that Latin phrase, was traced to a disavowed Terran unit known as Project Lux. A countermeasure created not to defeat enemies, but to preempt annihilation by becoming something worse than war itself. He leaned back in his chair, voice a whisper. You weren't trained to win. You were trained so that others wouldn't dare try. A message pinged across his data pad. Sarah has been summoned. Council closed session. Immediate. The closed chamber was cold. Deliberately so. 12 council members sat in a circle, lights dimmed except for a single beam that spotlighted Sarah in the center. Her posture was straight, hands folded behind her back. We've reviewed your presence here, intoned the Alvari representative. We have questions. Sarah waited. You claim no current allegiance to Earth's standing forces? I serve only as needed, she said. And only when humanity is at risk. You do realize your actions here have destabilized the cohesion of joint operations. Multiple species have requested transfers. Some feel unsafe. A flicker of something passed across Sarah's expression, disappointment. Then they've misunderstood the point, she replied. I was never a threat to them. Only to the assumptions they carried. A Krivos counselor, Jurek's own superior, leaned forward. Are you telling us Earth planted you here, to shame us? No, she said. Earth didn't send me. I volunteered. Surprise rustled through the chamber. Why? The Elvari asked. Because I wanted to know if the galaxy was ready to stand with us, or just above us. Silence. And then, what do the tattoos mean? Another asked. She paused. Then answered slowly. The first is my squad. All gone. The second is my oath. I made it when the stars turned their backs. The third, she trailed off, is a reminder of what I swore I'd never become. That evening she returned to her quarters. The hallway was empty. No mocking. No whispers. Just distance. As she stepped into her room, the lights automatically dimmed. She sat on the bunk's edge, pulled off her boots, and stared at her hands. They weren't trembling anymore. That scared her more than anything. A soft knock echoed. She stood and opened the door to find Captain Mazin there, holding a data chip. This was supposed to be locked forever, he said, offering it to her. But after today, I think it belongs to you. She took it without a word. It's footage, he added. Your last mission. Her fingers clenched around the chip. Why give it to me? Because there's something in your eyes, he said. Something that says you never watched it. She didn't respond. Mazin turned to leave. Then paused. You're not the myth they warned us about. You're worse. She gave a faint smile. I'm the result of being ignored too long. Later, when she finally inserted the chip, the hologram flickered to life above her bed. Dust. Fire. Screams. And then her? 17. Bleeding. Holding the line with nothing but her fists and a snapped rifle barrel. Behind her, her squad, shouting, fighting, dying. And at the center of it all, something she hadn't remembered until now, a child. Alien. Wounded. Clinging to her leg. She had protected it. She had disobeyed her kill order. The screen froze on her face, barely older than a child herself. Not angry. Not terrified. Just determined. The past stared back at her. And for the first time in years, Sarah Miles let herself cry. The Galactic Tribunal reconvened under emergency protocol. A fleet had gone silent in Sector Delta 41, one of the Council's most fortified defense lines. No distress signal. No remains. Just black. The room thrummed with tension. We suspect a rogue faction, declared the Elvari ambassador. This level of disruption implies internal sabotage or unrecognized tech. Captain Mazin stood slowly. Not sabotage, he said. A message. He turned to the center, where Sarah Miles now stood again, no longer in trainee grays. She wore an unmarked black uniform. No rank. No flag. Just presence. This isn't your war, one delegate said coldly. This is a council matter. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Then stop using Earth's fleets to fight it. The silence was deafening. Jurek rose from his seat. Explain yourself. I didn't come to prove anything, she said. I came to observe your response to threat, your bias, your unity, your truth. And I saw what I needed. And what is that, human? Sarah stepped forward. You are prepared to fight enemies outside your borders. But not the ones growing inside them. She lifted a small holoprojector from her belt. With a click, it cast a flickering image into the center of the chamber. An alien child, same species as those found dead on the edge of Council territory. Tortured. Scarred. Identical to the one from her own memory. Recognize them? She asked. Mazin's jaw clenched. That's from the border skirmishes. No, she corrected. That's from your own black site. Sector 12. Unacknowledged. Unregulated. And that child died screaming before Earth got the footage. A wave of disbelief rippled through the council. You came here to start a war, a delegate accused. No, she said. I came here to end one. Jurek stormed out after the meeting, claws tapping across the marble corridor. Sarah followed, silent until they reached the private corridor beneath the tribunal. You wanted something from me, she said. Say it. He spun around, eyes aflame. I wanted to know why you didn't kill me. Sarah blinked. What? On Mars. When the ghosts swept in. My unit was surrounded. We didn't stand a chance. But I lived. You let me live. Sarah stepped closer. You think I remembered your face? He faltered. I didn't let you live. You survived by hiding beneath your dead. You were unconscious when we cleared the sector. She watched the flicker of realization shatter his pride. But I remember one thing, she added. You were guarding a civilian camp. Jurek froze. We found them, she said. Alive. Because you didn't follow the withdrawal order. That's why you survived. That's why I didn't report you. Not because I cared. But because that day, you were more human than most council captains ever dared to be. He looked away. She left him in silence. In the barracks, Sarah found the new recruits lined up. They stood at attention, not out of obligation, but respect. Word had spread. Not the myth, but the truth. About the tattoos. The ghosts. The child. Among them stood Kellic. He raised his hand. Commander Miles, he said cautiously. I'm not your commander, she replied. Maybe not. But you're what I'd follow if the stars fell. Sarah's throat tightened. She scanned their faces, young, eager, and afraid. Not of her, but of the world they were about to inherit. She stepped forward, lifted her arm, and pulled back the sleeve. This, she said, pointing to the top mark, was my team. Lost on Daltha's moon. She gestured to the middle. This was the vow I made the night I buried them. Not for revenge. For memory. Then the lowest mark, almost faded. And this one, this is my reminder. That even warriors must carry the weight of mercy. She looked up. If you can't carry all three, don't carry any. The next day, Sarah stood at the edge of the spaceport tarmac, the sky above streaked with the blue trails of departing vessels. Mason approached, datapad in hand. The council wants you reinstated. I declined. He nodded. I thought you might. She looked over her shoulder. They'll come around. Or they'll fall apart. Mason offered a small box. She opened it. Inside, a medallion. Not military. Not political. A simple etching of 3 intersecting stars, one for each of her tattoos. It's not official, he said. But the recruits started wearing them. They call it the Mark of Echoes. Sarah stared at it for a moment, then closed the box. I don't need symbols. No, he said. But they do. She turned to him, and for the first time, her voice softened. Thank you? He inclined his head. Just doing what strategists do. Learning from anomalies. As Sarah stepped into the shuttle, she looked once more at the stars, distant, cold, waiting. Let there be light out of darkness. Her ghosts followed in silence. But this time, she wasn't alone.